Hey, is that folk music that you play there? What is that? How do you call that folk music?
I think it was Studs Terkel who asked Big Bill Brunzi, did he consider his blues music to be folk music? And Big Bill says, well, never heard no horses.
Don't hesitate. It could be your ticket to a new tomorrow.
I'd like to dedicate this story to the memory of a dear friend, Linda Couric. The only reason I can come up with that she was taken from us is that there's some place in this universe that needs her sweetness and beauty even more than we do. Hello. Nice to see you alive, as we used to say in the trenches. And speaking of being alive, did you ever wonder what was on the other side? Well, I come to tell you, because I've been. It happened because of the war. Everyone called it the Great War. Wasn't so great for me. At least not at first. And then it becomes something so incredibly beautiful, I wouldn't have imagined it in a million years. I didn't want to go to war. My wife had just had a baby, a beautiful little girl, Carolyn, but I took to calling her Cara. It was some Italian name that just come into my head. Means dear. Oh, she was so dear to me, she was. The greatest joy in the entire life was to gather her up in my arms and to carry her out to the meadow behind our house and show her the wildflowers. Cara, love, I used to say to her, even with a war, look how beautiful the world is. And so you can imagine I didn't want to leave her. But there was another reason too. It was the baths. You see, when the Romans ruled this part of England, they built baths. And when I was a little boy, I used to go out to the baths and look in the water and imagine that I was a Roman soldier with me breastplate, helmet, and me sword. And I could see my reflection in the water. And then one day, when I was a little bit older, I looked down in the water and it was blood! And there were the bodies of Roman soldiers with their breastplates and their helmets and their swords, and I yelled out, I don't want to be a soldier anymore. And so when they come to take me to the war, I wanted to say, I'm not going. But I went. They sent me to the continent. And they put me in a tank. They said, here's your tank, roll it over people, kill people. Well, I wanted to say I'm not going to do it, but I've done it. And I rolled over people, and I killed people, and all the while inside the tank I was crying, I don't want to kill nobody, I don't want to hurt nobody. Thank God the artillery hit me tank and set it on fire, and blew it up. And it tore me body to shreds, and I was free. I was free. And me soul rose up and up and up. And I come to a place made of white light. And waiting there to greet me was a big fat Greek with long white hair and a long white beard and a long white robe. Oh, he was huge. He gave me a hug that would have broke all me bones if I'd had any bones. Welcome home, he says to me. And I says, where am I? And he says, well, you're home. Don't you remember? Don't you recognize it? And I said, well, I'm not really sure. And he says, well, why don't you have a look around? And that's what I'd done. I went for a walk, and I come to a temple made of white light. But when I went inside, it wasn't a temple at all. It was a library. And there were these beings. They were looking at desks, and they were reading these books made out of stone. And there was a librarian being behind the counter. And I go up to it, and he hands me a book. It was so big, very thin stone. It weighed nothing. I looked at it, and it was writing on it, but I didn't know what it was. And I asked the librarian being, and he tells me it's Pali. I said, what's Pali? And he tells me it's the sacred language of the Hindus. It's the religious form of Sanskrit. And I said, I can't read Pali. And he tells me, go, take it and sit down at one of those desks and look at it. And I've done it. And I looked at the Pali, and I could read Pali. Oh, it was very interesting. It was more than interesting. It was marvelous. It's full of secrets. Now, I can't tell you these secrets, but I sat there reading the Pali for the longest time. And then I decided to see what else was here. And I went out to the library, and I come to a temple, another temple, and I went inside, and this was the temple of music. And there was two choruses. There was a men's chorus and a woman's chorus, and there's a chorus master, and he says, join our chorus. Well, I says, thank you, I will. I first wanted to join the women for some strange reason, but then I joined the men. It's a funny thing. On earth, I couldn't sing at all. I was terrible. But here in the temple of music, I could sing, and the music was so beautiful. Never heard anything like it on earth. That didn't have any words. It was just music, and we sang and we sang. I can't remember ever being so happy. And I stayed there for a long time singing. And then I thought I would go back to see my Greek friend. And there he was, and he told me some interesting things about himself. He told me his name was Anaximandros, and that he lived in Greece 2,600 years ago. And he was quite famous and very interesting. He made the first maps of the world for the Western world. And he brought the sundial back from China. And he was the first Greek to write in prose. And he did wonderful things, very interesting man. And we talked for a while, and he told me about what it was like here. And then he showed me a little temple. But it wasn't a little temple, it was my own house. Oh, it was just right for me. And I liked it, it was very comfortable. And this became my life. Every day I'd go to the library, I would read the Pali, and I learned more and more about things that I can't tell you about. And I sang in the chorus. And then I would go back to visit my Greek friend Anaximandros. I called him Naxi because Anaximandros is a mouthful. And one day, Naxi and I are sitting there talking about life and things. And I look up in the sky, and there I see colored lights. Colored lights. Now where we were, it was all white. Beautiful, really beautiful. But it was all white. And I saw color, and I said, Naxi, what's that? And he says, why don't you go see? And I says, well, how do I get there? And he says, imagine you're there. And I done it. I imagine I was there. And I was there. And it was another temple. But it was made of colored lights. All kinds of colored lights. And it looked like a tapestry. It's beautiful. And as I was standing there admiring it, a great ball of light comes out of nowhere, and it flies up, and it spins around and spins around, and then it stops. And there, standing in front of me, is this Hindu. And he says, "How do you do? My name is Yukteswar. You must be that fat Greek's twin brother." And I says, "Well, I don't know anything about that, but I'm pleased to meet you. Now, may I ask you about this temple? It looks like a tapestry." And he says, "That's very perceptive of you. This is the Temple of Souls. Every thread in this tapestry is a soul. There is a thread of light here for every soul in the universe that has ever been created. When the soul is at peace, you see, it is part of the fabric of the universe, the tapestry of life. But you see, sometimes a soul has ambitions. It's discontented. You see this one here." And I looked at it, and it was pulsating. And he says to me, this Hindu, he says, "This is a soul that wants independence. It wants power. It wants to experience things. And when you see a light that is like this is what you must do." And he plucked the thread of light from the tapestry, and he drew back his arm, and he flung it out into the night sky. And blimey, it became a world with people and animals and destinies. When you come back here, again, this will be your job. But for now, go back to your fat Greek twin brother. And so I imagine I was back with Naxi, and I was. And he told me, I said, "Naxi, this Hindu said we're twin brothers." Well, he told me about that. I can't tell you because it's secret between us. But it was very interesting. Well, this become me life. Every day I go to the library, and I go to the Temple of Music, and I talk with Naxi. And eventually it become time for me to go back down to earth. But before I done it, Naxi showed me some of me past lives. For instance, 3,000 years ago in ancient Greece, I was a high priestess of Athena. Yes, I said priestess, yes, and I had a chorus full of women. And that's probably the reason that I wanted to join the women up here. Oh, and while I was this high priestess, I met a goddess. She wasn't a Greek goddess, she wasn't Athena. She was more beautiful, she was kinder, but she was more powerful too. And when I crossed over, this goddess came to carry me across. Well, I met her again in Spain about 400 years ago. I was looking after her shrine, and I played with her little boy. But I met him, you see. I met him when I was a Roman soldier. And I was on crowd control at an execution. And I met the man who was being executed. It was for sedition. They'd strung him up on a cross, and he looked terrible, and he needed water, I thought. And I went up to him, and I offered him some water. And he laughed. He said, "I won't need water where I'm going. You drink it." And he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed. I never heard such a laugh in all my lives. Oh, well, there were other things too. I was a crusader. I was a crusader once. And the man who killed me in battle, he used to be me brother in another life. And he used to be my sister in another life. And in another life, way back in Egypt, way back, he used to be me wife. And speaking of Egypt, I once built a temple in Egypt. And I once died on a pyramid in Egypt, and in another life I died on top of another pyramid in the land of the Mayans. I was one of the first women around Francis of Assisi. It's where I learned Kara. And I was an Arab once, and I killed one of my rivals for political power, and I spent my whole life fearing that they were going to get, his friends would revenge themselves on me. And it never happened. I ruined my life. And when I was about to die, the soul of the man I killed come to tell me he forgive me. And when I was ready to cross over, the goddess come to take me away. Only she was dressed like Fatima because I was a Muslim. It's all very interesting. All very interesting it was. I looked at all these lives and I saw I'd done some good things. And I'd done some not so good things, and I'd done some terrible things. But whenever I crossed over, there was always someone with me, and I never got punished. They just showed me another way to do it. The next time when I come back. It was awfully good of Naxi to show this, and he gave me a little gift as well. Just before I left, he showed me the life I was going to have when I went back down to earth. He showed me my little baby girl, Kara. She'd be there too. She wouldn't be me daughter, but she'd be my niece, and I'd get to see her grow up. It was almost time now. Almost time to go back down, and Naxi said,
"You're not going to remember this at all when you get down. And when you come back, it may take years before you remember it again. And you may not remember it at all. But if you remember, tell people, because they worry about what will happen."
And now it really was time to say goodbye. And he gave me a hug. Would have broke all me bones if I'd had any bones. And I gave him a hug. Would have broke all his bones if he'd had any bones. And then life was gone. And I come back. Maxie was right. Took me more than 60 years before I remembered it all. And now that I remember, I'm telling people, they may think I'm crazy, but I don't care, because some people worry. They shouldn't worry. It's all going to come out just fine. We had a little song back there in the war people used to sing in England. People sang it because they were afraid they'd be separated from their loved ones for a long time, or maybe forever. It goes a little bit of it like this. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but we'll meet again someday. Well, thanks for listening. And if you see Naxi before I do, say hello. In the meantime, as we used to sigh in the trenches, nice to see you alive. Ta.
Howdy. The show is Horses Sing None of It. Our guest is Bernie Libster. Welcome to the show, Bernie.
Thank you, Ralph. It's a great pleasure.
It was a great pleasure listening to that story.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the way we got connected up here was because you are on the Public Relations Committee of the New Jersey Storytelling Festival.
Oh, indeed I
As well
am.
as being a storyteller and singer of Italian songs, and
Yes, singer of Italian.
translator of Italian children's stories.
Yes, all of these. You wouldn't have figured that one out, would you? Sorry.
So we're here to publicize this New Jersey Storytelling Festival that comes around every June.
Yes.
And you can get more information at the website, which is www.njstorynet.org.
It's at a beautiful place, the Grounds for Sculpture outside of Trenton, Hamilton, New Jersey. And along with all the stories, you get to see wonderful sculpture and grounds. We have a lot of fun.
What could be wrong?
And nothing. Even in the rain, you can have a good time. And I hope people will come. That's a great way to hear all kinds of stories for adults, for kids, for mixed groups. It's a wonderful workshop for people who like movement. Julie Pasquale, she's a wonderful dancer and clown and storyteller. Change your life the way stories changed mine.
How did stories change your life?
I used to be shy and retiring. If you can believe that. It's hard to say, but I think we all love an audience. We all like to give forth, and just to give. And not everybody tells personal stories. People tell stories that mean something to them. So when you tell a story, you give something of yourself, something that moves you. People need this kind of give and take. People need to be moved. There's so many uglinesses in the world, the way one of the little Italian children's stories that I tell sometimes. To give something in a world that is full of not beauty, I guess. And we're surrounded by not beauty. So to give some beauty. And I think people appreciate seeing somebody else excited about something that moves them. It's just a wonderful experience. And the camaraderie is wonderful. We love one another, and anybody comes will be welcomed into the storytelling community. We do a lot of hugging. That's also a nice thing to do. I hope you come. I'll put you on the spot.
I don't know. That's what happens when you put me on the spot.
I'm sorry. I hope everyone out there will come.
I hope everyone out there will come too.
Good.
So, would you like to sing us a song or tell us about another story or tell us how you got involved with translating children's stories from the Italian?
How much time do I have? Can I sing and tell stories about my
You
childhood?
have 4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes. I love Italy. I love the language. And in a textbook, I discovered a children's story that was wonderful about a comic book cat and a comic book mouse. The mouse wanted to know what real cheese tasted like. The cat wanted to know what real mice tasted like because they'd only had a chance to eat pictures of food. And so they went into the real world somehow. The real mice rejected the comic book mouse. The real cats rejected the comic book cat. And they discovered that they were the only people in the entire real world who spoke the language of comics, and the cat and the mouse became friends. And I thought this was a wonderful example of communication, interspecies communication. We need to communicate. The way people talk to one another, we might all be from other planets. And it was just so wonderful that I started to translate more and more of these stories, and I made a CD of them, and I love them. They're full of love.
And then what's the name of the CD?
The CD is called 7 Stories of Gianni Rodari, Gianni Rodari. He's a contemporary Italian storyteller. Or not a storyteller, writer. He lived until 1980. And I got an email from a woman, a Russian immigrant who came here, and she said, "Oh, I found your name on a website. You translate Gianni Rodari's stories in Russia. He's as well known as Walt Disney is in America." And nobody here, with a few exceptions, have heard of him. And that's a shame. And so here I am on my little white horse like Don Giovanni. Well, no, Don Quixote. Don Giovanni's another guy. And trying to introduce his stories. And that's for another time. So you want to hear me sing Italian song?
Yes, but before we do that, let's tell folks how they could find out more information about your book, your CD, should they want to find a copy somewhere.
Well, let's see. My website is, I don't have a website. I have an email address, Bernie Libster, one word, @optonline.net. And you can call me 201-288-8617. And if enough people buy them, I'll have to have the CD reprinted because I have them made as people need them. And
that would be a happy problem to
oh,
have.
it would be a wonderful problem. Oh, just to flood the world with these beautiful stories would be nice.
Great. So we'd love to hear some Italian music, singing.
Okay, I will sing you a Neapolitan song everybody knows because it was popular here. I think Dean Martin sang it in English. And I got it from my favorite Italian singer, Dmitri Hvorostovsky, who was a Russian baritone. I will skip the introduction in the interest of time. You will know the song. Parlami d'amore, Mario, tutta la mia vita sei tuo. Gli occhi tuoi belli brillano, fiamme di sogno scintillano. Dimmi che illusione non è, dimmi che sei tutta per me. Qui sul tuo cuor non soffro più, parlami d'amore, parlami d'amore, parlami d'amore, Mario. Now that is a schmaltzy Italian song. Speak to me of love. Grazie, grazie. My first public singing appearance.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Really
Oh, I had
enjoyed it.
so much fun. I hope people have enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Good.
For one.
Good, good. I'm glad.
Don't forget to take off your microphone before you walk away from the...
Oh, can't I have it? I could use this.
Souvenir of the show.
Oh, I see. Okay.
See if I can...
Thank you.
Very entertaining.
I never told them it was all true.